Let me make sure I'm not muted. There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to 2025's first episode of You and I Builder Live, the show where hopefully it's going to work today. My name is Maria Gabriela Ochoa Perez-Wechter. I'm an outbound product manager on the Agent Experiences team, and I am so proud to welcome back Travis in his new role.
Hello, everybody. I'm Travis Tolson, and I'm the newest senior developer advocate here at ServiceNow.
Yay, welcome. So we've had Travis as a guest on here before, but now he's a co-host. He has graduated. He didn't even stop at intern, just went straight to co-host.
I have to
Imagine
actually
that.
work now.
Yeah. So speaking about working, today we're going to work on a community project that is near and dear to my heart. A lot of you may be involved in the SN Devs community. And part of that community is getting points for helping people. And currently, we have a leaderboard to show off to everybody that you know that, hey, look at that. I got points. Where am I? I have gone way. No, there I am. My name's the longest one. I am 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th, 9th place, right under our intern. I got to get my work going.
It's a pretty easy name to spot on the list.
Yeah. And then here's Travis. So what we're going to do today is we're going to get started on creating this portal inside of UI Builder, because that's what we do on this show. To anybody new watching, we work on UI Builder stuff. So our goals are going to be first to create data resources to access a script include that is what runs this side of the screen. And then this side is ran with just not the script include. So Travis is going to guide us on our learning adventure today. So let's go ahead and get his screen sharing. And Travis, what's a GraphQL data resource?
Yeah, so I mean, you can think of GraphQL as kind of a next step from REST APIs. So it's a way to get data from the server side into your client, so into UI Builder. And essentially, GraphQL allows you to tailor what you want in the payload. So you can ask for just pieces of the data, or you can ask for all of the data. So in a REST API, you'd usually have to write if I pass this property, then pass this part of the object. But GraphQL gives you an easier language to parse that out. You can think of it as kind of a sequel for REST APIs. So,
cool. So where do we get started?
All right. So the first thing that we have to do is go into our GraphQL
Don't click the first one.
APIs. Wait, but that's the Hacktoberfest one. We want System Web Services GraphQL, and we want to create a new GraphQL API. This is, again, very similar to your REST API. This is kind of the umbrella that houses a bunch of specific functions to whatever feature you're working on. Let's see. So we'll call this one points thing. Are we going to keep with the same old naming conventions here?
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. So when you set up a GraphQL API, I'm going to trip up on that one every time. The first thing you have to do is define your schema. And this is one of the big differences between your REST APIs and your GraphQL is that REST API, you can kind of sling it and hope for the best. Just throw whatever properties on the object you want and call it a day. With GraphQL, you actually have to have a defined structure to the data that you are sending back to the client. So
don't hit
every
save.
Schema. Oh,
we're in the wrong scope.
Oh, no.
There's a points thing scope.
Well, that would always help. So let's go to our points thing scope.
Yeah, we want to be able to commit this back to the repository so that way it can, help
Would be
the
kind of important.
community.
Peer
Yeah.
programming.
So now we're good to go.
Now we're good to go. So we'll call this one the points thing API. And so every schema comes with queries and mutations. And very simply, a query is something you use to get data from the server. And a mutation would be something that you pass to the server to change something with like a glide record update. So query, gr.query, mutation, gr.update is a very simple way to think about those. So we're primarily working with queries here today, so we shouldn't actually need the mutation at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that one for now. Now, within the type, we have to define what functions we actually want to call. So, Gabby, what's our first function that we want to call here?
I think it's gonna be, let's get the leaderboard going. So it should be get leaderboard.
Okay, so get leaderboard. Oops. All right, so first we give our query a name. Then we need to pass properties into that function. So you can basically think of this structure as the URL parameters or the properties in the body that you're passing into a function. So there's kind of some overlap. It feels a little bit like JavaScript functions, but also a little bit like REST APIs, but it is pretty cool. So what parameters do we have for get leaderboard? Is that in our script include?
Yeah, I don't think we have to pass any parameters. So
Okay.
Let me find you the script include and I'll link it to you.
I think it's this guy.
Yes. It's
All
not
right,
that
so we'll go to that
though.
leaderboard function.
That one.
Yeah. Okay, so do we need to pass chatgr, send, or all?
I think that is what they get sent when they call it from the Slack. I don't
Gotcha.
think we need that to show it for the portal though.
Okay, so in this case, we're not going to pass any parameters. If we were going to, then, we would have to define what the parameter name is and its type. And this is one of the things that, coming from JavaScript land, you may have to get a little bit used to, is that in GraphQL, it has very strict data types that you have to adhere to. You can define your own complex types, but we will get to that in a minute. So then we put a little colon here. And then the next thing after the colon is the type that you want to return. So we don't actually have that defined just yet. So I'm just going to call it some type for now. And we're going to put an exclamation point which tells the API that this is required. This is one of the cool things about GraphQL APIs is that you can define required values within your functions and your return values, and the GraphQL engine will automatically enforce those restrictions for you. So next, we want to define a type, and this is going to be the return type. What does the structure of the return value look like? So again, at this point, we're still just building the schema. But this is very important when we start doing the mapping later. So out of this function, we are returning, I believe it's an array. So we've got an items array. And I think it was defined up here. Yeah, so, well, that's the users array. Do you know what the return value on this one looks like, Gabby?
No idea.
let's see if we can take a look at that. So I'm going to actually save this real quick if it'll let me with the errors. Oh, got to define those ACLs. And I'm going to select, is there a points thing?
Is SN we need to have it be public.
Here, let me create a new ACL real quick. And I don't think you guys can see this one because it's opening in a pop-up. Oh, it's not letting me create one from here anyway. Well, here, let me copy what we've got so far. And we'll come back to this since it's not letting me do what I want. Anytime I'm creating new APIs, REST API or GraphQL, I always forget that I have to create those ACLs first because those are required. So in order to do that, I don't have security admin, I don't think, or wait, I have to elevate.
Uh-oh.
Nope, I don't have it anyway.
Working on that now.
Here's what I'm going to do for now. I'm going to put a default one there just as a placeholder, and then we can update it later. That's one of the great things about coding live, is that you get to make plenty of mistakes in front of everybody.
And everybody's judging you. No pressure.
That's okay. Mistakes happen. Okay, so I'll just pick a random ACL for now, and we'll go back and edit it, and it still doesn't like it. I'm going to change this to one of the native types. Expected, name found, maybe empty. Okay. That was one of the things I forgot, is that with GraphQL APIs, if your parameters are empty, you actually don't need the parentheses. The syntax on these schemas is very, very strict across the board. So it takes a little bit of getting used to when you're building out these APIs. The cool thing is that once you have them built, there's a lot more flexibility in them than in a traditional REST API.
Can we just uncheck all the security stuff down there?
Yeah, actually.
Because we want it to be public in the end, so don't require authentication.
Okay, good call. And it's going to yell at me for not having mutation present, so type. I guess that was needed. Schema namespace points thing already exists for application namespace.
That might have been when I was messing with this back in October. So maybe name the schema namespace points thing new, or
thing new.
Actual points thing.
All right.
We are currently on a Xanadu instance.
There we go. Okay, so now we've got the save in there. Now it's happy. All right. Now from here, we'll go back to creating our additional types. Or actually, wait a second. I wanted to call this function. So before we go there, let me create a favorite so I can easily get back to this.
You can do it from the star up at the top now.
The star
in the application pill?
Oh my goodness. Learn something new every day. Thank you. See, I'm an old dog who has been stuck in his ways for so long that I overlook a lot of the new features sometimes.
I feel you, and it feels almost impossible with how many new things are coming out all the time. But hey, this is a great plug If you want to stay up to date on what's coming out in Next Experience in UI Builder, you should totally check out the Next Experience Academy. It happens on the third Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern. And I'm going to have my intern plop down some links for us here. I'm going to send it to him real quick. We've got our What's New in Experiences show. It's going to happen in February, the third February of the month. And then our What's New in UI Builder is going to happen on March, in March. So what you doing?
Oops. So syntax edited me. Okay. So basically, I want to try and look at what the result of this leaderboard call is. So I was just executing that script include, and you can kind of see we've got an array of strings is the result. Okay, so that actually makes things a little bit easier because each item in the array of this function is a string. So we actually won't need a custom type in this GraphQL query. What we can actually do is, and I have to look this one up because I don't quite remember, GraphQL return array of strings. Because I always forget the syntax stuff in this. Okay, that one. That's what I'm looking for. So we want to return an array of strings. So we're going to put the little square brackets around string. That tells the schema that, hey, we're going to be returning an array of string values. All right, so at this point, we've defined one query that we can run with this API, and that's the get leaderboard that returns an array of string values. Now, from here, we need to create a resolver that is going to essentially basically, we're going to create a resolver, we're going to create a query, and then we're going to use the resolver mapping to say, when you fire this query, run this resolver.
Got it.
So all a resolver is just a function. And that function follows a particular structure. And that is basically going to use this, this environment variable up here. So what we want to do here is, well, there's no parameters being passed. If there were parameters being passed, then what we would do is, we would give it a parameter name, and we would say environment.getArguments dot whatever the name that we passed in that parenthesis. We would then put that name here. We don't have any parameters for this particular one, so that actually makes things kind of easy for us. Essentially, what we want to return is more or less what I did in that, more or less what I did in the background script. So I'm going to be a little more explicit this time around.
And I actually messed up. We do need to have the parameters inside of us calling the API in here. I sent you a message on Teams with what I think the parameters might be.
Okay, null, false, and true. Okay, and are those fixed values then? Not variables that can be passed by the user?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. So we're going to create that script include, or we're going to create an instance of that script include, and then we're going to call the leaderboard function, pass it to the result, and then we're going to return that result in this mapper. Ooh, turn on ES12. Got to use them. Got to use that new ECMA 2021.
Oh man, you lost me already. I'm gone.
Let is the new VAR.
Hey, great plug. Our intern put in a lot of work last year and came out with a extension to a Learn JavaScript YouTube playlist that was out there. And now Earl has a whole bunch of videos. So you can also learn ECMAScript 2021 if you're more in a ServiceNow context. I highly encourage you take a look at those. I don't have a link handy, but I hope he can post one.
And I realized what mistake I made earlier and why it was forcing me to have the mutation. Remember when I said that the types are really important and that the schema is very strict? Because my schema defined mutation up here, I had to have that type defined elsewhere within the schema. So if I want to remove mutation, I also have to remove it up here. And now it'll let me save it. So again, when it comes to the GraphQL, you're probably going, unless you already are familiar with it, you're probably going to spend most of your time just looking up this, how the schema syntax works. At least I know that's the case for me. I spend all my time looking at the schema syntax and trying to get that dialed in. Same with the queries. Again, we'll get to that in a minute.
My favorite thing to drop in interviews is, yeah, I've been a developer for 7 years. Don't ask me to write a glide query for you from the top of my head. I just Google it and copy it.
I'm not a software developer. I'm a Google expert.
I got my Google Foo skills. Like, I haven't written a glide aggregate from scratch in my life.
So the next thing we want to do is we want to basically instruct the GraphQL query engine. We want to tell it that when somebody passes a query for get leaderboard, we want it to call this particular function. In order to do that, we have to create a resolver mapping. So we click on, we select the path, which this is coming from our schema. So that's why it says query, because it's under the queries, not the mutations. And then you have the name, get leaderboard. And then we need to select our resolver, which is the function that we created. And we hit submit. So now all of that is wired up. And at this point, you might be thinking, that seems like a lot more work to do something simple. But what I want you to consider is that as GraphQL APIs get more complicated, you can reuse the same resolvers. So if you are returning incident records in multiple places within your queries, you can use the same resolver, pass different parameters, and so you can have multiple functions up here in your schema that all map to the same resolvers. Additionally, if you have say problems that contain that contain references to incidents, then when you pass a problem in your resolver, if it has associated incidents, it can you can instruct it to automatically call the incident resolver. So I don't know if we're actually going to encounter those scenarios today, but it's a pretty cool functionality. One thing that I highly recommend is another plug here is John Lynn's tutorial series on GraphQL APIs.
When I'll look it up and I'll grab the link. But yeah, when I was first trying to figure this out, oh, you have the link. Nice.
I came prepared for this one. Yeah, this one here is really great. I'll drop it in chat. This series of articles is really great for getting a grasp on how to do it in ServiceNow. It's really, really good. I reference it regularly when I'm building out GraphQL APIs myself. So
So we actually can't drop things in the chat because we're not cool enough, Travis. We have to rely on the intern because links get filtered in the chat.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Let's see. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to test this API. To do that, let's see if I can remember where. There it is, GraphQL Explorer. So GraphQL Explorer is going to allow you to basically test any of the GraphQL APIs. And we've got error fetching schema. So I think there's a system property that has to be enabled to allow it to fetch the schema. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't think it's necessary, but it is helpful when you're trying to explore the schemas. But what we can do is we can just kind of, I'll just kind of riff from memory a little bit on how to structure GraphQL queries manually. And this is where where my statement that GraphQL is kind of like SQL for REST APIs comes in, because you actually have to write a query syntax that's unique to GraphQL. So I'm going to come in here. I need to make sure I've got all my ducks in a row. Okay. So to write a GraphQL query, and basically the way this tool works is you write your query on the left-hand side, you click the big pink button, and it shows you the result over here, which for me, 99 out of 100 times is going to be some kind of error because I messed something up. But hopefully we didn't this time around. So the first thing we need to do is we need to specify whether we're running a query or a mutation. In this case, we're executing a query. It's jumping around on me a little bit. And I'm going to...
Maybe you can unpin the menu?
There, we'll stretch that out so I got a little more real estate to work with. So once you define whether you're going to be using a query or a mutation, you have your curly braces. Within that, you will define the scope, actually. Let me grab the scope. Now, GraphQL, a little different. We have to drop the underscores and go to camel case, and that's just that's just how the engine parses your scopes. Is you don't want to use the underscore version of the scope when you're passing it into your query. Then it was points thing new. Then you want your API name. And then we want our function name, which was get leaderboard. Now, additionally, if there was more than just a string to pass, let's say that there was a name and ID, I could turn around and do this, and I could say, pass me the name, or pass me the name and the ID. And this is the cool part about GraphQL. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said that it lets you tailor exactly what you want to receive. You know, in a REST API, I would have to say, if params.name, if params.passName, then add the name to the object. If params.passID, put ID in the object. And that can get really unwieldy really quickly with large objects. GraphQL allows you to just specify exactly what you want, exactly what properties on the object you want to receive, which makes your payload smaller and makes GraphQL faster than most of your REST API equivalents. But in this case, we don't have any parameters on that object. We're not passing any parameters in. If we were, we would use the little function style syntax to pass our parameters in. And now we are going to hope for the best. And where'd my draggy thing go?
Maybe unpin the unified nav menu on the left to get some space back.
Okay.
And now, hopefully, I think you can maybe get it back.
Uh,
You broke it.
Hold on. We're gonna. Man, he. Oh, God damn
Oh,
this.
oh, nope, nope. Maybe we refresh the page.
All right. We'll
How
try
did you
that.
break it on day one?
I don't know. I am pretty good at breaking things. It's one of my specialties.
It's not there.
Oh man. Oh, I got it.
Oh, it worked.
Okay. And it will store I did not trust it, so I copied it, but it does store the previous query that you ran across page loads, which I think is pretty cool, especially considering the number of errors I usually get. I didn't get any this time.
How did it work on the first go?
New guy luck.
That's amazing. Okay, I guess that's the end of the episode.
Yay, we're all done. Pack it up. So now we've got our query working. We can now pass this data back and forth. Now, one of the things that's cool about queries is you can add additional scopes. Like you can get pretty complicated with your query and mutation logic. And again, it basically allows you to batch your queries and your mutations together so that you can send one single payload to the server and get one single payload back, cutting down on the number of times you have to go back and forth to the server. So if you're thinking about creating new REST APIs and you don't have to use REST APIs, definitely consider implementing as GraphQL.
So speaking about that, we did get a question in the chat from Valentine asking, in addition to GraphQL's advantages, is there any performance improvements to using it?
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about is where a lot of the performance improvements come from. So basically, if in a lot of your REST APIs and a lot of your script includes, what will happen is you'll pass one single payload back that contains all the fields and properties, whether you use them or not. I have seen instances where people have turned around and returned related lists type details even though they weren't using it. So like they would have incidents and then related problems all in the same payload, and they might call that multiple times in the portal or in UI Builder. They might call that multiple times but not actually use the data. When you specify it in the query, it just doesn't run resolvers that it doesn't need. So those resolver functions, one of the core reasons for their existence is because if you don't ask for that data, it doesn't run the resolver. So it's going to save you a lot of performance in that regard. And it also saves you in performance by reducing the number of calls that you have to send to the server. So that allows you to batch things together. From there, sorry, kids are home on a snow day, and I got a little distracted for a moment. From those are the main performance benefits that you get. The next thing we can do here is we can actually pull this data into UI Builder, and we got time for that. So you want to move to that next, Gabby?
Sorry, we're all relating to you and your yeah, we're all going like relatable in the chat. What did you say?
I would bring the kids on the stream, but I don't think the little one wants to come on the stream right now from what I'm hearing in the background.
Like, can confirm that kid's really cute though.
He is.
Very cute. So what were we doing? Sorry.
Gone. Next, I wanted to try to bring this data payload into UI builder itself, because now we can actually run the query, but right now all this is still server side. We actually got to get it into UI builder. So let's launch our UI builder.
Now this is my my live environment, and I haven't Z-booted it in 2 years. So welcome to what might be, actually, no, you're not going to see all the messy stuff because you clicked on the wrong button. This is the hackathon one.
That
So just
hackathon one is throwing me off repeatedly.
me too. The Hacktoberfest. Yep. There you go. That's the right one. But no, you won't see the mess because it's on a per user basis. So you can just go to, I think I called it, see if it's called points thing.
Points thing
There
portal?
it is. Yep, the points thing portal.
Outstanding. Let's go. It
And you
keeps
can
asking
ignore
me to
that page
begin
and just
tours.
create
I
a
don't
new
want to...
variant of that page. Up at the top in the plus next to pages and variants, add variant to a page. Yep-a-roni. And just add
Not
variant.
duplicating, just doing a new one,
Don't
right?
duplicate the old attempts of me trying to get this to be an October last year episode.
There we go.
Create from scratch.
Sorry, I got distracted.
Right.
There's so many cool things to look at in here. I don't always keep my UI builder up to date. So I don't always see the latest stuff all the time. So
How could you?
I'm sorry. I'm bad at updating things.
Unacceptable.
Again, old and busted. Let's see. Default. What was the old one named?
I named this one the working copy, aka the Travis version. Nah, we don't need audiences. Oh, and now, since we're building this in Xanadu, we can build it responsive.
Ooh, yay. I love responsive. I was trying to click that button down there without hitting the stop sharing. Oh, there we go. All right, got it. Okay, now, at this point, we need to add a data resource. So data resources, of course, are the way that we get things from the server. And GraphQL is no different.
Do we need to create a new data resource for it?
Yes, I believe so. Oh, I'm adding a current one, aren't I?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. All right, so we'll name it the points thing API. Actually, so let's grab our query syntax and drop that into our query. Now, when you're defining a data broker, of course, you can pass in properties. You can define what your output schema is. We're not actually working with properties. I think output schema will just be empty array. And that should do it. Now, if we had mutations, we would want to mark mutate server data. Overall, this should do it with any luck. All right, so that went back, and then add data resource. Now we got points thing API. I probably should have actually done, I named that wrong. because in reality, we're actually defining a specific query. We're not defining the overall API. So let me open this guy up and rename it.
And just to note, renaming it here doesn't rename the actual data resource. You're going to have to go back out to the outside page. But for our purposes, this isn't going live anywhere. We can name it whatever we want. Wait, no, we may have to actually be careful because we are going to be committing this back to the repo. So technically, we should do what we say we do. Do as we say, not as we do.
So I was just clicking through the data pills here, and you will see that because we have it marked to evaluate immediately, it automatically runs that in the background. And you can see that we've got our output, data, points thing new, get leaderboard. It's basically stepping down through the output here, the data, points thing new, get leaderboard, and then the values. So that is the structure of the output that UI Builder receives. And so that's what it looks like in the pill form. So
and to note, the reason the leaderboard looks kind of wonky is because someone may have forgotten to put in new data that would fill the last 90 days worth of things. So ideally, next episode that we cover this, it will look a lot much better.
So let's open that record to do things properly. We'll name it Get Leaderboard. Update. And let's make sure it's still... I like to reload on things sometimes.
We didn't hit save.
Oops.
Didn't you hit reload?
Goodness gracious.
Best practice number 1, hit save.
Hit save. But at least now we can look at it as Get Leaderboard.
Nice.
I planned it that way the entire time.
You know what? Makes sense. Totally on purpose.
Okay, so still executing correctly. Save.
Hit save this time.
All right, so now we have our data resource in place. Now...
This is 2 columns.
2 columns? Okay.
Yep.
And we'll do this in the left column?
Yep. And I think we need a repeater, right?
Mm-hmm. I love all the new icons. They're so cute.
The new preset menu, which I think we just hit cancel on.
Then the data array. No, we want scripted.
Yep.
And we want data resource, get leaderboard, output, data, points thing, get leaderboard.
And then we push up. Hang on. Okay, so this is a new visual data binding, and you actually have to click on the arrow up to move your bullet up. So when you get here, press the up arrow. And first, let's click on the X up there. Press on the up arrow. And now you got it. Now hit apply.
I kind of like that because that'll save me a lot of accidental overwriting stuff.
Yeah, it does take a little bit to get used to though. But if you hit save, we need to put a component in there to actually be able to see anything. So the stylized text component I hear is a favorite on this show.
I was already going for it.
I just love the lore of just Brad liked this one. He just started using this new one component, and now everybody just uses this one component instead of the many very different components our developers work really hard to make. There we go. It works. Beautiful. Ship it
Perfect.
straight to prod.
Let's change a couple things here because we don't want the H1 tag. Paragraph?
Let's do H3.
H3?
Yeah. This is something that I was going to end up trying to figure out how we should do it. Because yes, we've got this now, but this is technically the output that it outputs for the chat in Slack. So eventually what we're probably going to have to do is create a new version of that script include that will export it in a way that we can better use it for UI Builder.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't do different formatting for that first repeater versus the other repeaters to show the header. And the emojis don't work on here because they're emoji textified to work on Slack.
I wonder if we could do some of that processing in UI Builder.
Ooh.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Now, before I go any further,
You're gonna
Photoshop
rename...
rules apply. Name your layers.
Like, I typically just chalk it up to say, do as I say, not as I do. The hypocrisy, I think, keeps me authentic.
One of the things that and this may have been updated, so feel free to correct me. But one of the things I've found is that those IDs are harder to change later. The more you build out, if you change that ID, you end up having to update it in other places later. So the sooner you lock in a really good name, the better.
And the ones that's most important to do that with are things like data resources, because once you refer to it somewhere, you're going to have to update that manually everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Man, is this what you're going to bring to the show in 2025? Actual good practice? Because I don't know if I like that. We might have to reconsider this host arrangement.
No, I'm just going to bring naming things.
How could you?
Rename, that's going to be...
This one is leaderboard.
Repeater. Or we'll call this one the leader label. Because this is like the person and their points. And we can rename that one later when we actually use it. And then save.
Save! That's the best practice. If you learned anything today, always remember to save.
All right. So now we have our GraphQL API. We have our data resource created. We're able to pull that data in. And I'm absolutely gobsmacked that it all actually worked on the first time. That is the part I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah, we didn't plan for this at all. What are we going to do to fill the next 10 minutes?
Gosh, I didn't plan to actually succeed. That is the one thing I was not counting on.
Are we? This is like an award acceptance speech. We're getting cut off by the music.
Oh my goodness.
So let's talk about what else we want to do with this page on our next episode.
Well, clearly we can use some better styles and headings, and like we've got I got a pretty crude layout going here, let's be honest.
Yeah, slightly. I'm going to commit to getting us better data. I can at least do that.
We've got the other side.
Yeah, we got to build out the other side as well, which just shows all of them ever. I wonder, I wonder if once we set up the right side, if we could set up, I mean, we wouldn't really need a search on the leaderboard page because you can just control F and find your name.
I mean, I would love to turn the I would love to turn these into icons.
How would we do that? Would we rewrite the script include or do something in UI? I want to do something in UI Builder.
That's what I would like to do, because like I'm thinking that we could potentially use some of the uh, client script maybe, um, or maybe even some processing in the repeater itself is something I've done before. So basically using a script in there instead of a binding. I think there's a couple options that we could use for that one, but I like the idea of changing those to icons rather than the Slack format. Because basically
Yeah.
what we would need to do for that is we would need to parse that out. So if the line contains that, we need to parse it out, split it. That become that one gets left alone. This one gets processed. So basically, we would have to do a little bit of line by line processing in the array. And if it contains that, then we would probably convert what we would probably do is we'd probably convert the string, each of the strings to an object, and the object would contain an icon and a label. And if the line had this, then we would set the icon property and all of them would have a label property. And that way, we would have an icon and a label as a component here.
Now, I like doing things in UI Builder, but I'm also going to be the first person to be like, we don't got to do it in UI Builder if it doesn't fit. So right now, the reason why we're stuck with this output, quote unquote stuck, is because we're reusing one of the script includes functions that outputs this for chat. But I feel like we should go back, and the reason why we're using it is because it already does the calculations for top 5% of users in the past 90 days. That way we don't have to rework it. But I feel like the easiest thing to do in this instance is really going to be go back to the script include, create our own function, and have it output the information different than it currently does, line by line. That way we don't need to do a lot of that processing in UI Builder. We just change this part of it where it's
Is a chunky boy.
It's a big kudos to Earl and everybody who works on points things. It's a really, really cool application. But I feel like if we go back here, we separate things out better and actually make it work for us. We'll have to do a lot less logic and processing in UI Builder, and we'll be able to just bring things in.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we'll be trying to undo what this does and then start from there feels a lot harder than just giving us what we need from the data here.
Yeah. And as much
especially since we have the freedom to do it.
As fun and interesting as it would be to do it in UI Builder, I have to agree with you that this would make more sense to do it server side because you're not really changing this data for one specific view. You're actually changing the format of the data itself. We're trying to make a more friendly version of that data that's more consumable to other UIs. So it doesn't seem like that would be something that would only apply here in this particular view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like it might just be easier and a more fun experience than trying to like reverse it in UI Builder and then go from there. But I think we'll do that in the next episode. And then we'll work on the second side of things once I have better data, where we need to show off the long leaderboard. And then we can work on the fun part, which is styling.
And that next one could be a really good conversation about when you would want to do processing in UI Builder versus when you would want to do processing on the server too.
100%. But you know what? You know what time it is?
Time for us to actually get kicked off now?
Yeah, time for the show to end. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with us in the chat. And thank you all so very much for helping me welcome our new host, Travis. Travis, how was your first quote unquote official UI Builder Live?
It was great. I made plenty of mistakes and everybody got to learn from them.
Yeah, and it worked on the first try, which is like a high score.
Don't count on that happening in the future.
You've set up expectations that you're going to need to meet for the rest of forever. Thank you all so very much for watching. Share this with your cousin, your third brother twice removed, everybody you know. Share the UI Builder knowledge. We're going to be doing this show for the rest of 2025. We're also going to be coming out with a lot of really cool new content for the rest of the year. Starting with, if you check out on the Next Experience forums on the community, we'll be posting 2 blogs a week introducing you to UI Builder concepts and introducing you to a whole bunch of new learning that you still got to do for UI Builder. So be sure to stay tuned, subscribe to the blogs, come back here on the 2nd and 4th Thursday of the month. We're going to figure out our schedule a little bit more moving forward. But thank you guys so very much for watching, and I hope you all have a good rest of your Thursday. Bye-bye.